What is this?
So let me break down the book for you. So The Baptist is essentially a human condition story about living in a world that is evil and just bad and full of corruption and sin and all that stuff that we all feel and kind of just all feel it but don't really know how to explain it, but it's just kind of there. That music you're hearing in the background is POD, and we'll get into them later. Just that nagging sense that something's wrong with the world, and all the characters in the book in some shape or form feel the human condition and how it weighs on them, whether it be their jobs or whatever. In terms of plot-wise, to set the stage, basically God and the devil make a deal. The devil makes a deal with God for what comes down to a rematch. He wants to try again to beat him, and he thinks that in today's day and age, he can do so. So obviously, God accepts the challenge, and he sets in motion a plan to reset the clock, to give the devil his second chance. So I've been working on this book for a few years now, trying to get everything done in between actual life and kids. I'm filming this in between workout sets and wherever I can. That's my daughter. She wants to be an author too. Right? Now in terms of specific plot, the story itself follows two main characters, both who want to change the world in their own way for different reasons. One is a scientist who ends up being the one who creates time travel.
I was going to be the boy who changed the world.
I could be what I always wanted.
And the main hero of our story, or kind of anti-hero in the story, is a police officer in Baltimore, and his name is John. John is a cop in Baltimore, one of the roughest cities in America, and he just gets on the force as a rookie, thinks he can change the world, but quickly realizes that there's not much he can do. Even being a police officer, he can't really affect the change that he wants to see. He's sick of seeing crime and murder and all the horrible things that men do to each other, and he's just sick of it. So eventually in the book, he becomes somewhat of a vigilante and takes his fight to the streets. Obviously, while all of this is going on with John, the other character, the scientist, is working towards creating time travel. Eventually in the book, the two plots meet. The two characters both share the vision to change the world in extreme ways, and time shift happens, and it goes from there. So, it's 6 in the morning here, getting a little early morning hustle in, doing a little bit of workout and a little bit of work on media. The benefits of having your gym and your office in the same space. You can kill two birds with one stone.
Lights out! Game over! Make way 'cause the Kings is back!
Gotta make time where you can. So the inspiration behind the story came from not only for the basic premise of the story, but also just for the whole attitude and kind of theme behind the book, and why I wrote it and who I'm writing it for, all derives from there's a band that's called POD, right here.
My soul's payable on death, homegrown out the west. My words spit lethal from the grill, leaving you holding your breath. So who on next and who gon' test?
Christian rock band came up really big on the scene in the 90s, got really huge in the 2000s, broke into the secular scene, and became top of the charts. Anyways, I was introduced to them at a young age, fell in love with their music, their positive message, and their hard-edged kind of music and style. I really loved. But when the album came out, called Satellite, I think was their biggest album at the time, it came out right around the time of September 11th, and I was going through a lot. The feelings behind these books, coming from the events of September 11th, 2001, really hit me hard. Just realizing that people could do that. I was young, realizing for the first time that people could do that to each other, and there's people out there who do this kind of thing, just really struck me as horrible. And the idea of the world being so bad kind of hit me there. Anyways, their music at the time helped me through a lot of that. And there's one song in particular that became my favorite song of all time, still to this day, track number 8 on their CD, called The Messenger. The Messenger. And the themes, if you listen carefully, it's obviously revolving around the story of John the Baptist. From the actual Bible, the lyrics are one voice in the desert calling, make way, all these sorts of ideas. So the idea of kind of a badass John the Baptist was planted, and and then just again, at the time when I was looking around, there were so many Christian movies, Christian books out there that just weren't doing enough to help people. And I thought, I quickly realized that the reason behind that is because, no offense to the producers or anything, but most of it is cheesy and lame. But I saw and watched this band, POD, that I love so much, break onto the scene and just become friends with these other bands that, a lot of people in the Christian world would call heathens, or, of the devil's music. And these hard-edged rockers were, not being approached by the faith because of how they were and how they looked and dressed and their music and lyrics. But POD, I think, kind of broke down the barriers and became friends with these guys, and just hit the road with these guys, toured with them, played shows with them, and were just doing what they were supposed to do, is just to love them and be friends with them and not judging. So that whole attitude kind of sunk in for me, and it was already kind of present, that it was already kind of there, but POD's attitude and the music just really fueled it for me and kind of brought it home and made me realize it all the more what we need to be doing. POD to death. Saw them 4 or 5 times at concert in the span of a couple of years. Got them to sign the shirt at Cornerstone Music Festival there. That's all their signatures there. Still have it on my wall. Still have this hat, actually, from the concert in Toronto that they played at the Cool House. This is actually the drummer's. This is Wub's hat that he threw out into the audience after the show. And I quickly picked it up after the show, and I still have it to this day, some 15, 20 years later almost. POD has been so influential for me. They talk about this whole thing called Babylon, and it's a great city, a great representation of just evil in our world, and I've included it into my books and some of the title chapters and some of the conversations that the characters have. A lot of days I sit right here in my car on my commute with the tunes going for some inspiration. I always have my arsenal, of course, POD, beside me on the chair. Got my stack, got the music going, I'm grinding this thing out, trying to get it going. Selling these books. I'm praying that the right person comes along, the right store, the right agent, whatever, comes along and picks up my book, gives it a shot. So with this project, I really wanted to give the world something they had never seen before, or never read before, in a religious, if we're talking about a religious or Christian context. I just wasn't satisfied with the content that was out there. People really watching it are church people, and that's good and all, but what's the point of that in the long run? I wanted to give readers something that they could relate to, and that's what these books are. It's a modern day version or a modern day telling of biblical events as if they were to happen today, once the time shift goes through by the end of part 1 into part 2. First book we'll see, the title of it is called Judges Genesis, so we'll see a period of time not unlike our state of the world today, where it's a state that the Bible deemed as a dark time for the people, called the time of the Judges.
As the saying goes, once again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Where just people were so bad to each other and so evil that judges, figureheads called judges, were raised up. Some were bad and oppressed the people, and some were good and brought the people out of their ways and redeemed them. But they were looked at as kind of leaders and people who fought. Many of them were fighters. So I kind of took that into my book and made the anti-hero character of John like a judge. So, and because of the biblical because of the biblical overtones, I decided on Judges Genesis, because Genesis obviously means beginning. Obviously, the book in the Bible, and the book of Judges from the Bible, and it's kind of an amalgamated title because it means he's a judge and it's his origin story. So it's a Judges Genesis. Part 2 is out. It's called the New Testament, and obviously this deals with this is the devil's plan coming to fruition. That's the deal that he made with God at the beginning of the series. This is where he sees his plan come to fruition, and he gets his second chance, where the biblical days of Jesus Christ are happening for the first time ever in our day and age in our history. So instead of Jerusalem, it's Washington, D.C. Instead of Roman centurions, it's police officers. The disciples, who were fishermen and average people from back in the day, are cops, lawyers, construction workers, businessmen, you name it, blue-collar workers, down to high-class workers, bankers on Wall Street. Those kind of people are the disciples. Instead of the temple, it's the Capitol building where Senate is held. Instead of religious leaders or Pharisees, it's senators, U.S. senators, political senators who end up persecuting the Jesus character. And that's where it goes from there. I can't say too much about giving anything away. And part 3 is still under construction, and it's coming out soon, so I can't say too much about that or the title of it. But keep your eyes peeled for content about that coming very soon.